above all else, I know that the most conservative of conservative values is fidelity to our Constitution. I tell you, I have never voted for a Democrat, but this year I am proudly casting my vote for Vice President Kamala Harris.
Boom shakalaka, former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney, that is right, is making her full-throated appeal to Republicans who aren't sold on Trump to vote Harris instead. But our next guest says it might not be that simple. I'm joined now by Stacey Abrams, former Democratic leader of the Georgia House, host of the new Crooked Media podcast, Assembly Required, and author of the new children's book, Stacey Speaks Up. It is out now. Stacey, it is an honor to speak to you tonight. So much focus has been on convincing swing voters, Republicans, to vote for Harris. But is that the most effective strategy? Because you once told me a story about swing voters, and it has stuck with me for years. They're much harder to get than people think.
Well, I think that we're talking about a different category of voter this time. Swing voters, where you're attempting conversion from one value system to another, that's conversion. That's not persuasion. My parents are pastors. Their job is conversion, and that's hard to do. It takes a long time. But what we're seeing happen with Liz Cheney and Kamala Harris is about persuasion. And I think Liz Cheney framed it perfectly. You're trying to convince people that the priority of their values in this moment are aligned with the vote that you want them to take. And for conservatives, if you believe in protecting democracy from autocracy, then your values demand that you vote for Kamala Harris. You're not trying to convert them to believe in the fundamental policies of the progressive and democratic wing of the party. You are trying to convince them that preserving the nation that we all love is the most important activity. But I think when you widen the aperture, what you recognize for swing voters, it's often not a question of do they want one candidate or the other. It is who do they think will reflect their values most. And where I push back is when we spend all of our time trying to convince someone who doesn't share our values at all to change their mind, when you can instead focus on someone who shares your values but is not convinced about the efficacy of voting. That's where you're focusing on behavior, not values, and that's where we can also pick up new voters and turn out more people.
Cheney is part of a Republican political dynasty. Do you think there are a lot of voters out there, especially in battleground states, that think like her?
Absolutely. In fact, we have one of them here in Georgia, Jeff Duncan, who was the lieutenant governor for the state of Georgia, a Republican that I worked with on some occasions and worked against more often than not, who is standing foursquare for Kamala Harris because he values protecting this country from an authoritarian and from the evisceration of our value system as a nation. And so, yes, there is an absolute benefit to talking to people who may not agree on every policy, but what you want them to do is prioritize the values that are the most fundamental. And in this election, because of these two candidates, there could not be a starker choice. It's one of the few times where we can move Republicans into the Democratic column, not because they suddenly have converted on democratic values, but because they value the democracy that we all share. But I also want to put out a plug for making sure that we're going after those low propensity voters who also agree with our value system, but aren't hearing enough about why this election matters to them. The job of the next 30 plus days is to make sure we're talking to both and not either or.
Then let's go from values to issues. Donald Trump polls way better than VP Harris on immigration. She is now addressing that. She is going to the border. She's leaning into this. Is that a good use of her time with 30-ish days to go? Can you persuade people on an issue that Trump polls way better than with this amount of time? Is that a good use of her time?
I think it's a use of her time that is valuable in this way. For those for whom this is neck and neck with another set of concerns that they have, her ability to diminish their worry and increase the likelihood that they are going to support her, it's worth it. Because we do have folks for whom they've heard a lot. They've heard a lot of misinformation, and more importantly, they've heard aggressive, vile disinformation. And they want to be with Vice President Harris, but they have been fed a lot of information, and they need someone to break that up. So her willingness to defend and protect the people of this country, to talk about the importance of protecting the border, but also recognizing the humanity of those who live in this country, why they are coming to this country, that kind of conversation is exactly what we need to hear. And this is the moment when we need to hear it.
If she doesn't, at the very least, talk about immigration, Republicans take that empty hole and fill it with misinformation. I want to talk about a different topic. Georgia Democrats. Our audience doesn't know about this yet, or doesn't know enough. Democrats in your state are suing to block new election rules that they say could delay the results and create chaos on Election Day. Are people taking this seriously enough?
I think we always underestimate just how aggressive voter suppression is. Just today, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution put out a story pointing out that the law that we railed against in 2021, the Jim Crow 2.0 law that was known as SB 202, that it indeed had the exact effect we were afraid of, that it's disproportionately harmful to black voters in the state of Georgia by diminishing their access to the right to vote. Well, in this case, what we are telling you is that this renegade state election board is taking matters into its own hand and sowing chaos by putting in place rules that will delay the counting of ballots. And just to put it in really plain layman's terms, they're saying that in a precinct, 3 people have to hand count every single ballot that is cast, which sounds innocuous enough until you realize that Fulton County has more than 500,000 voters, and only 3 people per precinct will be allowed to handle those ballots. That will inevitably, in a state of 11 million people with nearly 5 million voters, delay the certification of the elections and could indeed jeopardize Georgia's Electoral College votes being included in the final count. That is a mismanagement not only of elections, but it's an intentional scheme to create chaos in the state of Georgia and to undermine the validity of this election.
Before we go, I want to talk to you about reproductive rights, because on Monday, a judge ruled that Georgia can no longer enforce its abortion ban. The state's attorney general has already appealed that. But how significant is this?
It's significant, first and foremost, because Judge McBurney acknowledges the humanity of the women of Georgia and our citizenship and says that this is not right. We live in a state where extreme abortion laws have taken the lives of women. And the fact that the attorney general of our state is going to court to restore the authority of the state of Georgia to put women in mortal jeopardy in order to deny them bodily autonomy should be offensive to every American, especially every Georgian. And unfortunately, we have a governor and a lieutenant governor and an attorney general who have been emboldened and empowered by Donald Trump to steal the rights of women, to deny us not only bodily autonomy, but health care, basic health care. They would argue, well, the law doesn't say this. Well, clearly what the law says is sufficiently either vile or incomprehensible that doctors could not save the lives of women. And those women have died, and that blood and that decision is one thing that we can change heading into this election. We can save the lives of women in Georgia and across this country by electing Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States.